Okay, welcome back to our grade 10 maths lessons. I'm Mr. Winup, your maths teacher. Okay, in our last lesson, we looked at solving quadratic equations. Okay, solving quadratic equations. Today, we are going to look at the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula. Okay, now, so the quadratic formula is applied when an equation cannot be solved using the factorization method, okay? Now we're going to do a couple of examples, or one example, where we use the quadratic equation to find the solution to the equation, okay? Now, remember in our last lesson, when you solve a quadratic equation, you have two solutions for x, okay? Two solutions for x. So we are going to try to solve an equation using the factorization method. Okay, so let's look at this example. And we will factorize this equation first to see if we can get a solution. All right, so we have 2x squared minus 5x, all right, minus 1 equal to 0. Okay, now remember, where the coefficient of x squared is greater than 1, we multiply it by the constant, okay? That's AC. So 2 times negative 1 will give us a result of negative 2, okay? Once we have found AC, we have to factorize AC and then, or find the factors of AC, that will give us a sum of negative 5, okay? So factors of negative 2 include negative 1 and positive 2. And we also have negative 2 and positive 1. So we have only two pairs of factors for the number negative 2. Now you need to check whether those two factors will give us a sum of negative 5. So if I add negative 1 and positive 2, my answer will be positive 1. And negative 2 plus positive 1 will give me negative 1. Now, nowhere near to the middle term here. So negative 1 and positive 2, the sum is 1. And the sum of negative 2 and positive 1 is negative 1. They don't give us negative 5. Okay, which means we cannot factorize this equation. It cannot be factorized and therefore cannot be solved using this method. Okay, so what do we do when we come or when we are faced with a situation like this? We now apply the quadratic formula. Okay, now what does the quadratic formula look like? All right, this is what it looks like. All right, the quadratic formula is x equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. Okay, so this is our quadratic formula, and we use this formula to solve the equation when factorization does not work. Okay, now again we have two solutions for x. That's why we have plus here and minus here. One answer will be negative, another answer will be positive. Okay, so we are going to use the same equation and use the formula to solve for the two solutions of x. Okay, now remember you look at your equation, you have A, B, and C in the formula. Remember, your general equation is ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, now coefficient of x squared is a, coefficient of x is b, and the coefficient, the last term here is the constant. Okay, so your formula, this is a, this is b, and the constant here is c. Okay, so let's rewrite that. A is equal to positive 2, b is equal to negative 5, and your constant is negative 1. So in order to use the formula, we are simply going to substitute these values into the formula so that we find the x solutions to x. All right? So x is equal to negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. All right? So negative b, we find is negative 5. So negative sign remains outside, in brackets negative 5 plus or minus negative 5 squared minus 4 times a is 2 and c is negative 1. Okay? It's all over 2 times a, which is positive 2. Right. Now we simplify. Negative times negative 5 will give us positive 5 plus or minus square root of negative 5 squared is 25. All right. Negative 4 times positive 2 is negative 8. So negative 8 times this negative 1 will give us a positive 8. Okay. And that's going to be divided by 4. All right. Now, 25 plus negative 8 will give us a value of 33. So, x is equal to 5 plus or minus the root of 33 divided by 4. Okay, so our answer remains in this form unless you want to give an approximate value for x, then we find the root of 33. We don't use calculators in grade 10, but you have the tables of square roots, which we looked at when we covered Pythagoras. Okay, so you could use those tables. All right. So our solution. All right. We have one value of x, which is 5 plus root 33 over 4. And you have x, which is 5 minus root 33 over 4. Okay. Now, because of this square root sign, your answers will be decimal. If you have to work it out, all right, you will get a decimal answer. But we prefer to leave our answers like this because these are exact values. Okay, so we have one solution for x, which is 5 plus root 33 over 4. And the other solution for x is 5 minus root 33 over 4. Okay, now that brings us to the end of our lesson. Okay, using the quadratic formula where factorization cannot work. Okay, in our next lesson, we are going to look at drawing the graph of a quadratic equation. Okay, we will also see why we have two values of x when we are solving a quadratic equation. Okay, thank you for joining me. I hope you have learned something new. I will see you in the next lesson.